If you earn the average salary in Britain right now, there is a strange feeling that follows you around. On paper, you are doing fine. You tell people your number, £35,000, and they nod, because it sounds respectable. It sounds like a proper, grown-up salary. And yet, somehow, by the 25th of the month, you are checking your banking app with one eye closed, doing quiet arithmetic about whether the card will go through. So why does a salary that sounds so decent feel so painfully thin in 2026? The answer is not that you are bad with money. The answer is that the word average has been quietly lying to you for years. Let us start with that word, because it hides two very different numbers. When people say the average British wage, they usually mean the mean. You add every salary in the country together and divide by the number of workers, but the mean is easily distorted. Drop a handful of City of London bankers, hedge fund partners, and corporate lawyers into the room, and their enormous pay packets drag the whole average upward toward nearly £48,000. That figure describes almost nobody standing in the actual middle. The number you really want is the median, the person standing dead centre, with exactly half of workers earning more and half earning less. For a full-time worker in Britain, that median sits at around £39,000. And once you fold in everyone working part-time, the true middle of the country slips to around £33,000. So a salary of £35,000 does not make you rich. It makes you ordinary, right in the thick of the pack. And that is the first uncomfortable truth. The reason you feel average is that you genuinely are. Now let us do the part nobody enjoys. Watching that salary shrink before it ever reaches you. You are told you earn £35,000. You never actually see £35,000. First, His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC, takes income tax. The first £12,570 is tax-free, and everything above that, up to £50,270, is taxed at 20%. That is roughly £4,500 gone. Then National Insurance, NI, takes another 8% on those same earnings, which is about £1,800 more. If you went to university, the student loan quietly lifts another 9% of everything above its threshold. And your workplace pension takes its own slice before the money even lands in your account, added all together. And that grand-sounding £35,000 arrives as roughly £2,200 a month. Without a student loan, you might see closer to £2,400. Either way, this is the real number, the one your entire life actually runs on. Here is the cruel twist most people never notice. Your tax bands are frozen. The tax-free personal allowance has been locked at £12,570 since 2021, and it is set to stay frozen for years to come. So every time you win a pay rise, just to keep pace with rising prices, a larger slice of it crosses a threshold that never moves. Economists call this fiscal drag. You feel a little richer on your P60 at the end of the year, and a little poorer at the till every week. You are running up an escalator that is quietly moving the other way. So where does that £2,200 actually go? This is the squeeze, and it begins with the roof over your head. If you rent in the southeast, or anywhere inside London, you can hand over more than £2,250 a month for an average flat, which is to say, your entire take-home pay, gone before you have eaten a single meal or turned on a single light. Move to the north, and the maths softens considerably. A rent nearer £800 is still possible across large parts of the country. This is the Great British Divide in 2026. It is no longer really about what you earn. It is about which postcode is quietly eating it. Then come the hidden taxes, the ones that never feel like a choice. Council tax, on an average Band D home, now runs well past £2,000 a year, and it has been climbing faster than wages for a long time. The energy bill sits around £1,700 a year, a figure that would have sounded absurd only a few winters ago. Neither of these buys you anything new or exciting. They simply arrive, non-negotiable, whether you use the house that month or not. And then there is the weekly reckoning, the supermarket. This is where the squeeze becomes personal, because it happens again and again. You walk into Tesco or Sainsbury's with a modest little list, and you walk out having somehow spent £60 or £70, staring at the receipt, genuinely unsure what you bought. That quiet fatigue at the self-checkout, watching the total climb while the bags stay stubbornly light, is honestly one of the most reliable economic indicators in the country. Now, in the middle of all this, glance at your neighbour's driveway. There sits a brand new Audi, gleaming under the streetlight. And you know for a fact that they earn roughly the same as you, perhaps £30,000. So how? The answer is 3 letters. PCP, personal contract purchase. They do not own that car. They are renting the right to sit in it, paying a fixed monthly fee for 2 or 3 years, at the end of which they simply hand it back and start the whole cycle again. It is, in the plainest terms, a subscription to a life they do not own. The car in the driveway is not evidence of wealth. Very often, it is evidence of precisely the opposite, a monthly bill dressed up in showroom paint. The comparison trap works so well because you can see the Audi, but you can never see the direct debit sitting quietly behind it. And this brings us to the single most important idea in British personal finance. Income is not wealth. Picture 2 people. The first is a young professional earning £50,000, comfortably above the median, with a smart flat, rented, a lovely car, on PCP, good holidays, on the credit card, and almost nothing in savings. The second is a retired pensioner whose monthly income is genuinely modest, but who owns a 4-bedroom house outright, with no mortgage left to pay, and a self-invested personal pension, a SIP, worth close to £1 million. On paper, the young professional earns far, far more. In reality, they own almost nothing, while the quiet pensioner is a millionaire. The wealth was never the size of the income. It was only ever what was allowed to stay behind after the spending finally stopped. Before we finish, let us be fair, because this story is not only about what gets taken from you, that tax and national insurance does buy something real. When you fall seriously ill in Britain, you do not receive a bill that quietly ends your family financially. The NHS, for all its strain and its waiting lists, means a heart attack does not become a bankruptcy. Your taxes pay for the roads you drive, the schools your children sit in, the police, and a state pension waiting at the very end of the line. In the United States, a similar salary can look noticeably larger on the payslip, but a serious chunk of it then vanishes into private health insurance, eye-watering university fees, and a dozen costs the British quietly never have to think about. This is the social wage, the part of your compensation that never appears anywhere on your payslip, but shows up on the single worst day of your life. It does not make the squeeze disappear, but it does explain why the raw numbers between 2 countries are never quite comparing the same thing. So where does all of this leave you, standing in the middle of the pack, on your ordinary, frozen, respectable salary? Here is the conclusion that actually matters. Wealth in Britain has almost nothing to do with the figure printed on your P60. A higher salary, spent entirely, simply builds a more expensive kind of struggle. The people who quietly become secure are almost never the ones who earn the most. They are the ones who create a gap, a deliberate, protected, defended space between what comes in and what goes out. That gap, whether you channel it into an ISA, into a pension, or into plain savings, is the only thing on this entire planet that ever turns an income into freedom. The salary is just the raw material, the gap is the wealth. And the quietly hopeful part, the one thing worth remembering as you close that banking app, is that the gap is the single number on this whole list that you actually get to decide. If you learned something from this video, make sure to like and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.